Are you a hairstylist looking for more information on our Keune Color portfolio, specifically Tinta color, semi-color, our lightening options, and support products? If you answered yes, then you're in the right place. In this video, I want to share with you how you can effectively use products within our Tinta color portfolio to get the looks that your guests are asking for. Thank you so much for being here. We are so glad that you took the time to watch this video. My name is Skrzypek. I am the Education Training Manager for Keune North America, and I'm a 17-year Keune user and an 18-year hairstylist. And over the last 17 years using Keune, I can't tell you the amount of times that I have fallen in love with this brand time and time again. My guests love it for their longevity, the shine and condition of their hair, and I love it for all of those same reasons and for what the company stands for, which we're going to get into in just a little bit. So who is Keune? Keune is a third-generation, family-owned and operated global company located in the Netherlands. Started in 1922 by Jan Keune, a pharmacist in Amsterdam who was fascinated by curls. He started experimenting and producing hair products above the drugstore that he ran with his wife, Cornelia. Here, Jan developed a more permanent liquid solution to curly hair that was far superior than heating rods above a gas burner. It became a resounding success, and in 1925, Jan and Cornelia put the Keune name above the drugstore. Over 100 years later, Keune promises to source the highest quality ingredients and to manufacture our products with you in mind. Our color, care, styling, and grooming products are designed for all hair types and for all people. As a family-owned company, we take great responsibility in caring for our planet and the people that inhabit it, not just for us, but for future generations to come. If you're interested in reading more about our sustainability mission or learning more about Keune as a brand, we encourage you to visit keune.com. One of our most valuable resources for learning about the Keune Color portfolio is our Keune Color Swatch Book. Within this book, you'll find information on Tinta color, semi-color, color chameleon, and our lightener options. When you open up the swatch book, you'll find a 2-page, easy-to-read chart on how to use color chameleon, semi-color, Tinta color, and our lightening options. On this chart, you'll find information about mixing ratio, processing time, developers required, who this product is designed for, and so much more. You'll also find advanced techniques below this chart on how to custom mix Tinta and semi-color, as well as how to remove color from the hair, whether it's level, tone, or color chameleon. You'll also find our Keune QR code on the back of the swatch book. This QR code will take you to KeuneEducation.com, where you can find a library full of videos to use as additional resources for product information and techniques. On the opposite side of the swatch book, you'll find more advanced techniques and options for Tinta color and semi-color. When you open up our Keune Color swatch book, you'll find a beautiful display of the shades that are available in Tinta color, semi-color, and color chameleon. So how do you know which category the shade is available in? On the bottom of the second and third page, you'll find our Keune Color key. This key will indicate whether your shade's available in Tinta color, which is our permanent color, and that's indicated by a square, and or semi-color. Semi-color is our demi-permanent color, indicated with a circle. These icons can be found above the shade throughout the swatch book, letting you know if that shade is available in Tinta color and or semi-color. When we flip to the very first page of our swatch book, we're going to find our natural levels. This easily pops out so that you can find your guest's natural or existing color level. When you're switching to a new manufacturer and a new brand, it's always important to find that existing or natural level. These are available in both Tinta and semi-color. Right next to that, you'll find our UC series. This stands for Ultimate Cover. Our Ultimate Cover shades are designed for resistant gray hair, offering more warmth, more alkalinity, and more pigment for those resistant gray-haired guests. You'll not only find natural shades in our UC series, but you'll find fashion shades as well. You'll know if it's available in UC if it has a purple Tinta square. Up next, we have different categories that our shades are broken up into. You have cool, neutral, and warm. Within these categories, you're going to find fashion shades, and a fashion shade is anything with a tonality. So this really lets you customize your end result for your guest. Up next, You have our Ultimate Blonde category. Within this category, you're going to find 2 high lift options, a lightener hybrid, and some oil-based lightening options that have the ability to lift and tone in one step. And the last page of our swatch book, you're going to find our creative category. Here you'll find your options for Color Chameleon, which is our direct dye vivid line, offering you 9 shades and 2 shade shifters to totally customize all of your shades that you have offered. Below that, you have semi-color glazes. These allow you to create trendy, customized shades for your guests when working at your lighter levels. Below that, you have our mixed colors that are available in both Tinta color and semi-color. These allow you to further customize your formulations to best suit the guest sitting in your chair. We also have our new addition, our Tinta color shade shifters, available in clear, metallic warm, and metallic cool to totally customize our Tinta color palette, taking our already extensive palette of over 100 shades and getting up to 650 different options by just using 3 different shade shifters. Below that, you have our Keune color wheel. You'll notice our tonalities listed on the left-hand side of the color wheel, indicating what that number means after the decimal point, and then where it lives at on the color wheel itself. So this will be an amazing resource for you as you're getting to know the Keune color portfolio. So what else do I need to know before getting started? The symbols that we talked about in the swatch book are also located on the box and on the tube. So if we take a look at our semi box, you'll notice that there is a semi-color circle on the top of that. And then on our Tinta box, you'll notice that there is a Tinta color square on the top of that as well. So as you're getting used to the brand, make sure you keep an eye out for those icons that are located on the box and on the tube. A few other things that I want to point out about our packaging. Our Tinta color, which again is our permanent, is located in the black packaging, and semi-color, which is our demi-permanent, is in the white packaging. You'll also notice that down the side of the box, there is a color-coded strip, both on the tab and on the box itself. This helps you identify what the tonality is within that shade. So notice that 9.32, it has a gold strip. We'll talk about the tonalities, but that means that its primary tonality is gold. So again, as you're getting used to and familiar with the brand, those color-coded strips are going to help you remember the tonality that lives inside that tube. So up first is Tinta color. And Tinta color, as you remember, is our permanent color line. So our permanent coloring option has exclusive technology. It is vegan and gluten-free. It has a mixing ratio of 1:1, has a 30-minute processing time, and no heat is required or recommended. The amazing thing about Tinta color is you can achieve 100% gray coverage in 30 minutes. For resistant gray coverage, you have the option to extend it to 40 minutes. So when we talk about exclusive technology within Tinta color, what does that mean? What are the benefits to me using it as a stylist? And what are the benefits to my guests receiving the color service? So within each tube of Tinta color, we have the Nourishing Complex and Color Protection Complex. The Nourishing Complex is made up of cocamide and sea silk. And cocamide is added into our formula as a moisturizing agent. It's going to help nourish and hydrate the hair. And you also have sea silk, which I want you to think of as almost like a hair band-aid. So sea silk targets any damaged areas of the hair, helps repair it and protect it from future damage. Now, our color protection complex consists of Solimere and LP300. Solimere is a UVA and UVB protectant built right into our color formula. So as soon as your guest goes out into the sun, we do have ingredients in place to help protect from that UV damage. LP300 is our color stabilizer. This helps ensure the longevity of the color. LP300 helps protect the hair during the lifting process to preserve and protect that color so you get the maximum longevity out of it. Now, our ingredients are broken up into our color and our developer. So it's why it's so important that you use our Tinta color with our cream developer. LP300 can be found in our cream developer, and our other key ingredients within our Nourishing Complex and Color Protection Complex can be found within the tube of color. So again, we always recommend using our Tinta color with the cream developer. So how do we use Tinta Color? We always want to start out by having a thorough consultation with our guests. Establish what the goals are for today, what they want the end result to be, and from there we can go and find our natural and existing color level. Grab that level indicator out of the swatch book, walk it over to our guests, and match up their natural and existing level. This will set us up for success when we pick our shades for our formulation. Step 3 is mix your Tinta Color and cream developer in a bowl using a scale. We always recommend using a scale for accuracy. Our mixing ratio is 1:1, so 1 part color to 1 part cream developer. Step 4 is apply to clean, dry hair and then let it process at 30 minutes. You do have the option to let it process up to 40 minutes for resistant gray hair. And if you're working with one of our high lift shades, the processing time then is 40 to 15 minutes. Step 6 is rinse well and then use our after color program. This is going to consist of an after color shampoo and after color balsam, which we're going to talk about later on in the video. So up next, let's talk about our cream developers. Our cream developers come in 10, 20, 30, and 40 volume, and they're recommended to be used with Tinta Color or decolorizers. 10, 20, and 30 volume can be used with Soapy Color. You can use them with our High Lift Blondes, and you can use 20 volume with our 1922 by JM Keune Color, which is our color line for men. So when you're using our cream developers with Tinta Color, when you're using 10 volume, we recommend this on previously lightened or colored hair, refreshing length and ends if you're using Tinta Color, or if you're working on the same level or one level darker. 20 volume we recommend for gray coverage, or if you're looking to get 1 to 2 levels of lift. 30 volume, you can achieve 2 to 3 levels of lift, and you can also use 30 volume within our shifting technique, which is designed for resistant gray hair, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. 40 volume, you can achieve 3 to 4 levels of lift. That chart on the back of our swatch book that we talked about earlier will let you know which developer is recommended for which products and how many levels of lift are achievable within that product with your developer choice. So we've talked about the exclusive technology within Tinta Color, how to use Tinta Color, and our cream developers. So let's jump back to the swatch book for a minute and talk about our shades. I don't know if you noticed, but when we were going through the swatch book earlier, there are some shades in the swatch book that have 1 number, some shades that have 2 numbers, and some shades that even have 3 numbers. So how do I know when I pick the shade what I'm going to get for the end result, and what am I working with when I pick a shade that has either 1, 2, or 3 numbers? So if the shade that you're working with only has 1 number, that means you're working with a natural shade. And our naturals within Tinta Color have a cool base. These shades can easily achieve up to 100% gray coverage. You can also use these shades when you're not working with gray hair. So you can use a natural shade if you're not looking for a warm or cool end result, and your guest just wants a really natural look. You could always pick a natural shade to achieve the end result. You can also use natural shades to soften the intensity of a fashion shade. So say you picked a shade out of the book that might be a little bit too bright or a little bit too bold, you can always add a natural into that formula to reduce down the intensity of that fashion shade. Now, what if your shade has 2 or 3 numbers? That means that you're working with a fashion shade. And a fashion shade is anything with tonalities after a decimal point. So you have the natural before the decimal point. Like in the case of an 8.1, you have the natural before the decimal point and then a tonality after the decimal point. So that indicates a fashion shade. And fashion shades are great for changing level and character of the hair. They can also be used for gray coverage, or they can be used alone. If you're going to use them for gray coverage, you just have to add a natural into the formula to help get that gray coverage. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. These shades can easily achieve up to 4 levels of lift on the hair. Your developer choice would depend on how many levels of lift you're trying to achieve and what your desired end result would be. So again, your naturals are 1 number and they're found before the decimal point. A fashion shade is anything with a tonality after the decimal point. So let's get into the tonalities now. So when you're picking a shade out of the swatch book, you know exactly what you're going to get for an end result. So your fashion shades with a 0.1 have an ash character, 0.2 is pearl, and pearl is made up of 2 parts violet and 1 part red. So in some cases, pearl can be ashier, and in other cases, it can be on the warmer side, depending on if it's paired up with another tonality. 0.3 is gold, 0.4 is copper, 0.5 is mahogany, which is made up of 2 parts red and 1 part violet, so it's the exact opposite of pearl. 0.6 is red, 0.7 is violet, 0.8 is mocha, and our mocha is made up of 3 parts mahogany and 1 part gold, and 0.9 is green. So again, these are all the color characters found after the decimal point within your fashion shades. As you're becoming familiar with Tinta Color and our color portfolio, you'll want to refer to this list in the swatch book. So these are all the same numbers that I have written here, and it shows you where they're indicated at on the swatch book. So again, when we were talking about the case of our 0.5 mahogany being 2 parts red, 1 part violet, you'll notice that it does err on the warmer side, close to the cool side because of that 1 part violet, but it does err on the warmer side of the color wheel. So again, always use this for a resource as you're getting used to our Keune Color characters. The great thing about these is whether you're working with Tinta Color, Semi-Color, or Soapy Color, all those tonalities are the exact same. Now that we've talked about the tonalities that live after the decimal point, let's talk about the influence of these tonalities in your shade choice. So Keune likes for you to know exactly what goes into each shade, and we call this our color composition. So up first, we have a natural level 7. If I decide to use just a natural Tinta 7, 100% of that shade is going to have that cool brown base. If I pick a shade with 1 number after the decimal point, this number is called our primary tonality. And in a shade with just a primary tonality, you're going to have a 50-50 split. So 50% is going to be your natural level, and then 50% is going to be that primary tone, in this case, gold. So you have 50% natural and 50% 0.3 gold. If you have a shade with 2 numbers after the decimal point, you have a primary and a secondary tone. Your primary tone will always have more of an influence in that shade than the secondary tone. So in the example of 7.32, a medium gold pearl blonde, you have 50% being your natural level 7, 30% being your primary tone, which is 0.3 gold, and then 20% being your secondary tone, which is 0.2 pearl. So depending on what you're looking for your end result, you may find yourself reaching for something that only has 1 number after the decimal or something that has 2 numbers after the decimal. So in addition to our fashion shades, we also have intense fashion shades. And our intense fashion shades are 8.66, so a level 8 red, 7.66, so a level 7 red, 7.44, so a level 7 copper, and 5.11, so a level 5 ash. In these shades, they have more color character, giving them a more intense end result. So if you look at the chart, 25% of this shade is their natural. The remaining 75% is their color character, again, giving them that more intense end result. These are amazing shades if you're looking for brightness or more control. They're also great to be mixed with your fashion shades to create a customized end result. We just don't recommend using them on more than 25% gray because they have such a low percentage of natural. That color character tends to just deposit really bright on that gray hair, sometimes giving you an unexpected end result. In addition to our intense fashion shades, we also have our specialty series. So up first, we have the Ultimate Cover Series. This series is designed for resistant gray hair. And we talked about it earlier, but let's look at the swatch book one more time. So our Ultimate Cover Series is indicated with a UC and indicated with a purple Tinta square. So anywhere in the swatch book where you see that purple Tinta square, know that you can use those shades for 100% coverage on resistant gray hair. Now, the thing that makes these shades so different is they do have extra warmth, increased alkalinity, and increased pigment, which is all things that gray hair is usually missing when we're not getting that coverage. So your Ultimate Cover series can be used again by itself for 100% coverage on resistant gray hair, or you can intermix them in with any of the other fashion shades in the book, depending on what your desired end result is, to achieve your gray coverage that way also. So again, by itself, or intermix with a different fashion shade or a natural if you'd like. Next up, we have the 0.19 series. So this is designed to help neutralize warmth when going from dark to light. So we do have some of those guests that want to go and push the levels of lift as much as possible with color versus switching to a lightener, but they also want that neutral or controlled warmth end result. For that, you would definitely want to go to something with a 0.19. 1 is ash, 9 is green. So you'll find shades in the swatch book such as 8.19, 7.19, all the way down to 4.19. So again, knowing where you're starting and knowing where you're going would help you determine which of your 1.9 series shades that you would want to use to lift and neutralize that guest's hair. Switching gears and going to the complete opposite side of the color wheel, we have our Red Infinity series. And our Red Infinity series is an intense, long-lasting category that will help you produce those vibrant reds and coppers and violets for the guest that's wanting to achieve that look. So within this category, we have shades like 5.56, so a level 5 mahogany red. We also have 7.46, so a level 7 copper red. 6.66, so a level 6 red, and then last but not least, we also have 4.76, so a level 4 violet red. Notice that they all have the RI symbol after them, indicating that it is the Red Infinity shades. So what makes the Red Infinity shades so different than the other shades? They do have the exclusive RI technology within them. And what this technology is it's a 5-sided molecule that better adheres to the hair and offers more vibrancy. So you are going to get an extended longevity with this. It also has that solar, that UV protection built in because it is in the Tinta range. So you are going to get beautiful, beautiful reds when using the RI series. Now, the great thing about this series is you can use it by itself, or you can also custom mix them with any of the other fashion shades. Or if you're trying to cover gray with these, you could also mix them with your natural as well. So definitely check out the Red Infinity series. Next up, we have our red boosters. And our red boosters are designed to intensify our red shades. So if you notice on the bottom of the 3rd page of the swatch book, you'll see these little colored bottles. You have a cool booster and a red booster. You'll find those little ampules next to some of the shades throughout the swatch book, letting you know that you can use a red booster with that shade. And the one thing that they have in common is a 0.6 after the decimal point. So anywhere where you see a 0.6 after your decimal point, you could add a red booster in to intensify that. How much do you add? Keune suggests adding 1 per 30 grams of color. So if you did want to do a full tube amount, you could add in 2 red boosters. Now, important thing to know about red boosters is they are a direct dye. So they don't actually travel into the hair with your color to make a permanent change. Direct dyes live on the surface of the hair. So these will start to gradually fade off. So that's important to know also. If you are looking for a more permanent change, then you would look into our mixed colors, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So we talked about red boosters being one way to adjust your red shades, but what if you have a different color shade or you're trying to neutralize versus accentuate a shade? That's where we come into using our mixed colors. So mixed colors are designed to accentuate, neutralize, personalize, or we'll talk about how to buy back tonality when we're using it for gray coverage. So our mixed colors are a mix of oxidative and direct dyes, meaning that they'll actually go into the hair with your Tinta Color formula and make a permanent change, meaning it will last the entire length of the color. So how do I know which mixed color to pick? If you open your Keune Color swatch book to the creative category, you'll find our mixed tones on the 3rd row down. So these will be indicated if they're in Tinta or semi-color by the symbol above the swatch. You'll notice that not everything is available in both categories, both Tinta and semi-color. So you'll want to make sure that it has a Tinta square above it if you're using it with your Tinta formulas. Now you have shades like 0/10, which is blue, 0/11, which is ash. The tonality number above the swatch matches the tonality on your tonality chart. So they are the same. So 33 is gold, so on and so forth. The 0 before the slash represents that there is no natural in that shade. So a 0/10 is no natural, but you have a blue tonality within your mix color. How do I know how much mixed color to use in my formula? Well, some of that depends on what you're trying to achieve when you're using it. So we give you a great reference chart on the back of the swatch book so you know how much to add into your formula depending on what level you're working on. So if you take a look at this chart, on the very left-hand column, it's going to tell you the color level. So this means if my formula is a level 5, I'm going to find and locate the 5 on the swatch book. From there, I'm going to follow that over, and it's going to tell me how many grams, centimeters, or inches I have to add into that to get about a 20% change in tonality. And notice that this chart is based on 60 grams of color. So if I was using 60 grams of, say, 5.35, and I wanted to add more gold to that, I would follow this across and it would tell me 6 grams. So if I wanted to add more gold, I would choose to add 6 grams of 0/33 into my formula to intensify the gold reflect in my end result. So this chart is a great guideline for you to follow to know how much mixed color to add in. Now, if you're only using 30 grams of color, then you would just cut all of these numbers in half and add in half of that amount. Say you weren't working with grams and you want to measure it in centimeters or inches and don't quite know how much to add, we do have a ruler on the bottom of your Keune bowl. So when you see the lines horizontal, when you measure that across, that's 1 inch across. So if the guidelines tell you to add in 3 inches, then you would just follow 3 of those horizontal lines. If you wanted to measure in centimeters, if you turn the bowl sideways and measure between the lines, that is a centimeter each. So again, depending on what the chart showed you to use, you would just measure out your centimeters to go in between those lines. So grams measure on the scale, inches, centimeters, you can measure using the bottom of your Keune bowl. Another great way to customize your Tinta color formulas is with our Tinta color shade shifters, and they're located right below your mixed color category. So you have clear, metallic cool, and metallic warm. There are so many things that you can do with our shade shifters, anything from diluting level, adding tone, using them for base breaking, or creating pastel shades. So you can really, truly customize the whole Tinta color portfolio by utilizing clear, metallic cool, and metallic warm. So we're going to talk about how to really break down each one to know how to use it, why to use it, and who really they're designed for. So let's start out with Tinta Color Clear first. So clear is our first shade shifter that we're going to talk about, and this has no color level or pigment. So this is just a tube of color that has no tonality and no level associated with it. It's designed to shift your Tinta color shades, meaning I can dilute and create new shades from my existing Tinta color palette by adding clear to it. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. You can use clear on natural or pre-lightened hair to lighten the hair. So this could be used for a base break service, or if you had a head of virgin hair sitting in your chair, you could use clear to slightly lighten that hair without having to go to a lightener or a high lift, just depending on what your end result is. So there are a few things that you can't use clear with, and that's the 1000 series and 1500 series, the 2000 and 3000 series. And the reason that we suggest not using it with those shades is because clear will also dilute the lifting power. And these are all designed to really give you a maximum amount of lift. So if I added clear to that, I would reduce how much lift I was able to achieve. So you can use it with anything outside of those within your Tinta color portfolio. So how do I use clear? The mixing ratio for clear is 1:1 or 1:2 with developer. Again, depending on what you want your end result to be and in what situation you're using it. So again, clear could be used as a base break, which would really play into that 1:1 or 1:2 mixing ratio. With 10 volume, you can achieve up to a half a level of lift with clear on natural hair. If you use 20 volume, you could achieve 1 to 2 levels of lift on natural hair. And if you wanted to use clear in 30 volume, we do recommend using it with another Tinta color shade in conjunction with the clear if you're going to use 30 volume, but you can achieve 2 to 3 levels of lift with clear on natural hair. Now, processing time would depend on if you're using it by itself or if you're using it with a base break formula. So if you're using clear alone or with another Tinta shade, you could leave it for 30 to 40 minutes. Or if you're using it for a base breaking service, you could leave it for 5 to 15 minutes. So you have some flexibility depending on how you're using it. Let's talk about using clear to expand your palette and create different customized Tinta shades. So say I wanted to use, let's pick a shade out of the book. Say I wanted to create a 9.38, but all I have available in Tinta is an 8.38. By taking clear and adding it to my 8.38, I can dilute the level and the tone and create a 9.38. And the formula that I would follow in order to do that is this one right here. So if I'm working at levels 7 through 9, I would use one part of my Tinta color. In this case, it would be 8.38 and one part of clear. What that's going to do is dilute the formula and give me a 9.38 as the outcome. So again, anything at a level 7 through 9, equal parts Tinta color to clear. If I'm working with darker shades, because there's more pigment in those formulas, I need to up the amount of clear in my formula. So I would do 1 part Tinta color to 2 parts clear. So a great example of that is if I wanted to take a 5.35, so a level 5 gold mahogany, and create a 6.35. If I wanted to create a 6.35, I would do 1 part 5.35 to 2 parts of my Tinta color clear, giving me a 6.35 as my end result. So really, if you're out of a shade, you can create it with clear. If you wanted to create a custom shade or a new shade that we don't have available in the book, you can now do that with Tinta color clear. So again, you can totally expand your Tinta color portfolio by just having clear in your dispensary. You can also use it to create pastel shades. So say you didn't want to reach for semi or our color chameleon to create a pastel shade and you wanted to create one within Tinta color. You do have the option of doing that by following this formula. So if I use 30 grams of clear, I could use 5 grams of a mixed color to create a custom pastel shade within Tinta color. I then have the option to mix it 1 to 1 with developer or 1 to 2. A 1 to 2 ratio is going to give you a much softer end result. So let's say you're trying to create a pastel pink within Tinta color. I could do 30 grams of Tinta color clear and mix in, let's say 5 grams of 0/66, which is red. At that dilution, I'm going to create a soft pink. So I can use that 1 to 1 with my developer or 1 to 2. And a 1 to 2 ratio with that formula is going to give me a much softer pink than a 1 to 1 ratio. So that's just an option if you wanted to create a pastel shade. You can also use clear with our metallics. So say I wanted to dilute down metallic warm or metallic cool. I could do a combo of clear and metallic cool or clear and metallic warm to reduce that intensity down some as well and either create a pastel shade or just custom mix a shade within my shade shifter options. So you got a few different ways you can use shade shifter clear. So up next we have our shade shifter metallic warm and metallic cool. Both of these shades have no color level but are designed to shift all of your Tinta shades to warm, cool, or diluted. So you've got a couple different options depending on what you want your end result to be. They are recommended for a level 6 and lighter, and they can be used on natural, colored, or previously lightened hair. The 2 things that we don't suggest adding our metallics in with is the Tinta 2000 and the 3000 series because these are lightener, either alternatives or lightener. They're not designed to live in that environment. So we definitely want to keep them within our high lift and the rest of our Tinta color shades. So let's talk about the tonalities within our metallic warm and metallic cool. So metallic warm is a refined copper with peach and rose metallic sheen, and metallic cool is an intense violet blue shade with silver nuances. So you can see the shades in the swatch book. This is metallic cool and metallic warm. I also have them on a swatch for you so that you can see them at different levels also. So this would be your metallic warm, and this is your metallic cool. Super pretty shades by themselves so that you can use them alone. If you wanted to customize them, remember we said that you could always add clear in with them. So if you like the tone but the intensity was a little bit too much, you could add clear in it to dilute that down and give you more of a pastel shade of both of them. So that's a great way to use your metallics with your clear as well. So how do I use them? Again, you can use them alone or with another Tinta shade combined. And you're going to mix that 1:1 or 1:2 with your cream developer, again, depending on what you want your end result to be. So a 1:2 ratio is going to give you a softer version of it. Your processing time, if you're using it alone or with another Tinta shade, is 30 to 40 minutes. And if you want to use these as a base break, which you can absolutely do, that is a suggested 5 to 15-minute processing time. And we're going to talk about how to base break with our shade shifters in just a little bit. If you wanted to create a custom shade using our metallics, you can totally do that. And here's a suggested chart for you to go off of. We have a soft, medium, and intense shift. So you'll notice with each one that you will reduce the amount of Tinta color and up the amount of shade shifter in each of these formulas as you get down into the intense version. So I have some swatches to show you an example of how you could use this formula chart to help you create custom shades in the salon. So I picked 9.2, which is a level 9 pearl. That is the shade that I wanted to use to shift. So that is the end result of 9.2 just by itself. So for the first formula in my soft shift, I did 1 part of metallic warm to 3 parts of 9.2. And this is the beautiful end result that I was able to achieve. So that is your soft shift. So this is 9.2 by itself. And then 9.2 with metallic warm. So 3 parts 9.2, 1 part metallic warm. So really pretty rose gold end result. If I wanted a medium shift, which is equal parts of my shade shifter to my Tinta shade, I'm going to create more of a medium shift. And this was the end result for my medium shift. So know that it is slightly softer than even the soft shift. Because I've increased the amount of metallic that's in there, it will also reduce down the intensity of the fashion shade. So I get a really pretty customized end result. Super trendy right now. And again, that's equal parts metallic warm to 9.2. If I wanted to flip it and have my fashion shade, or if I wanted to flip it and have my metallic more dominant in the end result, then I could go with my intense shift. An intense shift is 2 part shade shifter to 1 part Tinta color. So in this case, it would be 2 parts of metallic warm to 1 part of 9.2. So as you can see in the last swatch, our intense shift, this is 2 parts metallic warm to 1 part 9.2. These were all done with 10 volume, equal parts on the same level swatch. So as you can see, you took 9.2, shifted it 3 different ways with one of our metallics, and you're able to produce 3 very beautiful and different end results. So these are great for customizing, great for creating shifts in dimension in the hair when you don't want to go and pick a new shade, but you just slightly want to shift the difference within that tone. Some other ways to use the metallics, you can create pastel shades with them, and we talked about how you could add clear into your metallic warm or metallic cool to dilute down the intensity and create a pastel shade. You also can mix your shade shifter metallics together. So you could create a custom blend by using metallic warm and metallic cool together to create a totally customized shade. So that's an option as well. So we brought up base breaking a couple times, so let's talk about it, who it's for, why we do it. So you can now use the clear and metallic for base breaking. And what a base break service is it's really designed to softly lift the natural hair after a highlight or a balayage service. So a lot of times we have that shadow, if you will, of natural left behind after a heavy highlight or after a balayage service. And if a guest is looking for maximum lightness and brightness, sometimes a base break service is all it takes to get them feeling that much lighter. So this is something that would happen after your highlights are done, after your balayage service is done. Bring them over to the shampoo bowl, after color shampoo, just like we usually would, towel dry. And this can be done right at the shampoo bowl. Depending on how quick you're looking for that lift to happen or what you want the end result to be, we have two different options for your base break. So you could take clear or one of the metallics and mix it with equal parts 10 volume for an express base break. So this is going to give you a little bit of a quicker lift within your base break. If you're looking for less lift or a slower lift, then you would go to your pastel base break, and that's using 1 part shade shifter to 2 parts 10 volume. Again, giving you more of a slow controlled lift. Processing time is 5 to 15 minutes. This kind of depends on the level of hair you're working on, how fast that lift happens. Sometimes that's determined by how much dampness is still in the hair when this is applied. So there's a lot of variables that go into that 5 to 15 minutes. So I would suggest starting in the back and working your way forward and staying with the guests so that you can watch the lift happen, so you don't exceed that half a level to 1 level of lift that you're really looking to achieve with the base break. So now that we talked about shade shifter clear and metallic warm and metallic cool, let's go through some important things to know almost as a recap of everything we talked about. Adding metallics to fashion shades will dilute down the level while adding to the reflection result. So keep that in mind. If you're adding in a metallic warm or metallic cool into a level 6, it will start to reduce down the level while adding to the tonal reflect. Shade shifters can lighten natural hair, so consider underlying pigment. If you're using metallic cool or metallic warm on natural hair, again, that underlying pigment can contribute to the end result that you see with your metallic cool or metallic warm. You can use the mixed colors with your shade shifters. Like we talked about in your pastel formula, you could use clear and a mixed color together to create a pastel shade, or you could just create a custom shade with your mixed colors and maybe a metallic warm or metallic cool. Metallic warm, metallic cool, and clear are suitable for gray hair when gray coverage isn't required. So remember that when we add in our shade shifters to our formula, it can reduce down the level and the intensity of the shade that we're using. So keep that in mind. Depending on how much you add into your gray coverage formula, it could impact your gray coverage end result. So keep that in mind when adding them in. So now that we've covered almost everything in our Tinta Color portfolio, let's talk about some of the different treatment options that you have with Tinta Color. Because Tinta Color is a permanent color, it's great for going lighter or if you have to go darker with your guests. You can also use Tinta Color in the dual color treatment. And what that is if I have to touch up my guests, maybe they have gray hair or I'm lifting their natural, I can touch up with Tinta at the new growth and then refresh lengthen ends with semi-color. This is the safest version for the hair to refresh with the demi-permanent through the ends. And we're going to talk about more of the benefits of that in just a little bit when we get into semi-color. You could also use Tinta Color for toning if you wanted to. You do also have the option of using semi. But if you wanted to use Tinta Color for that, you would use it 1-to-1 with 10 volume if you're refreshing faded ends up to 2 levels. Or you could use it 1-to-2 with 10 volume if you're just looking to refresh color character, meaning the level hasn't changed, but the tone has just been lost or diminished. So 1-to-1 for faded ends, or 1-to-2 if you're just missing color character. Again, there's that base breaking. So you can use the shade shifters for base breaking, or you could use anything at a level 9 or 10 in Tinta to also do a base breaking service. So you have a few different options. Again, you still have that option of 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 with developer, and your processing times would be from 5 to 15 minutes. Let's talk about gray coverage for a little bit. So Tinta Color will give you 100% gray coverage at a 30-minute processing time. You can extend the processing time up to 40 minutes for resistant gray hair. So what does my formula look like? How do I know which one to pick to get the coverage that I'm looking for? If your guest has up to 30% gray, we suggest using a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 parts of your fashion shade, if you're using a fashion shade, to 1 part of your natural. So let's say that my guest wants to be that 5.35 that we talked about a little bit ago. So level 5 gold mahogany. If they have up to 30% gray, I'm going to use 45 grams of 5.35 to 15 grams of a natural 5. This is going to help assist in that gray coverage of that up to 30% gray and give me the 100% coverage that I'm looking for. If my guest has slightly more gray hair, so I like to look at this as maybe the guest that's been with you for a long time, as the time goes on, they get a little bit more gray, but they like their formula. So let's do the same formula with an increased amount of gray. So now my guest has up to 60% gray hair, but they still like the end result of that 5-3-5 and 5 combo. I just know that I need to shift the amount so that I still get 100% gray coverage. So now my formula would be 40 grams of 5.35 to 20 grams of a natural 5. This is going to give me the same end result, but again, we had to adjust it because of the increase in grays. Fast forward a few years later, that same guest that loves her formula has more gray. Now she's up to 100% gray. So now I have to adjust the formula that I do on her. Now I'm working with 30 grams of 5.35 and 30 grams of a natural 5. So now I'm at equal parts of my fashion shade to my natural. So still giving me the same end result, but I've had to adjust the ratio because of the increase in gray. So we mentioned earlier when we were talking about mixed colors about the addition of mixed colors into your gray coverage formulas to buy back tonality. What we mean by that is for example, in a formula such as up to 100% gray, when I'm using equal parts of a fashion shade to equal parts of a natural, some of the tonality of that fashion shade may get lost because of the additional natural added. So for an example, if we were still talking about that 5.35, so a level 5 gold mahogany, some of that tonality is going to get lost with the addition of a 5. So to buy back some of that tone, I could always add in 0/33, which is gold, and or 0/55, which is mahogany, to help buy back that tone and give me more of a truer 5.35 when I have a formulation for up to 100% gray. I would still follow the recommended guideline on the back of the swatch book for how much to add into my formula. We do recommend 20 volume for gray coverage. So in each of these categories, I would still use 20 volume to achieve that gray coverage, let it process for 30 minutes, and follow up with the after color program. If they have resistant gray hair, any of these natural options can be substituted for an ultimate cover natural. So again, say they like that 5-3-5 and 5 combo, but it's more resistant now. Just insert your UC natural into this slot versus just a regular Tinta natural to get that increase in pigment, alkalinity, and warmth for that resistant gray hair. So you do have the option to go UC series on resistant gray. You also have a couple different techniques, again, if it's resistant gray hair outside of just the UC series. So your first stop would be the chart that we just talked about. Next up is you have Ultimate Cover series as an option. And then you also have these two custom techniques as an option as well for extreme gray coverage. So the first one is our shifting technique. The shifting technique allows you to create a formula for resistant gray hair when it's all over the head. So say my formula that we just talked about on the last page wasn't enough. I tried equal parts 5-3-5 and 5 UC, and the hair is just too resistant and I'm not getting the coverage that I'm looking for. That's when you would get to your shifting technique. What this is I keep the amount of color the same. So it would be 15 grams of 5-3-5, 15 grams of my 5 UC or my 5 natural, and I'm going to reduce down the amount of developer that I use. So in this formula, I would do 30 grams of color and 20 grams of 30 volume. The reason that I'm increasing the developer strength is because now I have more pigment to develop with a lower amount of developer. This will also keep the natural end result that you get with Tinta color, which is that beautiful translucent, very natural looking end result. The ratio is a 3-to-2 ratio. So if I needed more color than this, I would just double this amount. So it'd be 60 grams of color and 40 grams of 30 volume. So again, this is an extreme gray coverage when it is resistant all over. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes they aren't resistant all over, but they just have those resistant spots, say in the temples or in the crown. For these guests, we have our pre-pigmenting technique. So this is just designed for resistant areas of the head and when it's not all over. In those resistant areas, what we suggest doing is going and grabbing a shade 1 to 2 levels lighter than your formula. So again, let's use the formula 5.35 and 5. What I would do is go pick a level 6 or 7 off of the shelf and take that color and apply it directly to those resistant areas. I can take it right out of the tube, or I could squirt it into a bowl without developer and use a brush to apply. What this is doing is the alkalinity from the tube of color is working to open up that cuticle faster. So when I put their color formula on, it can easily penetrate through so that I can get that coverage in that 30-minute window. So again, the shade 1 to 2 levels lighter, apply directly to those resistant hairs before your formula. Usually what I like to do is apply it, go back into the dispensary, mix up the normal formula, and the amount of time that I've taken to do that, it's ready to be applied right on top of my pre-pigmenting that I've already done. So you would still use the same formula, same developer strength, and apply it directly on top of my pre-pigmented areas. And then last but absolutely not least, if I have a guest that wants to go from light to dark and I want to use Tinta color, I have an option for that too. Usually when you're traveling more than 2 levels away from where you're starting, the hair needs to be filled first. So you do have the option to use semi-color or Tinta color for this treatment. So we are going to fill the hair with our mixed colors, and that mixed color is going to depend on what the missing underlying pigment is. So working at different levels, that mixed color is going to change. But we're going to fill the hair with mixed color and water. So as you can see on the chart, again, the mixed color changes, the amount of water stays the same. So if I'm filling to a level 10, 9, or 8, I'm going to use 8 grams of 0/33, which is gold, with 60 milliliters of water. If I'm filling to a level 8 or 7, I'm going to use 8 grams of 0/34, which is a gold copper, with 60 grams of water. If I'm filling to a level 7 or 6, I have 8 grams of 0/44, which is copper, plus 60 milliliters of water. If I'm filling to a level 5, I have 8 grams of 0/44, which is copper, with 60 milliliters of water. And if I'm going much darker and I'm filling to a level 4, 3, 2, or 1, I'm going to use 8 grams of 0/66, which is red, with 60 milliliters of water. I'm going to apply these formulas onto clean, dry hair. These can either be dried into the hair or left damp, and you are going to apply your target formula directly on top of this. So let's say that my guest wants to be a 5.35, since that's the shade we've been talking about. If they want to be a 5.35, my first step would be to take 8 grams of 0/44 plus 60 grams or 60 milliliters of water. I would mix that, apply it to the lightened hair, and then go and mix my 5.35 in Tinta color with 10 volume and apply it directly on top of that. Let it process for 30 minutes and then finish up with our After Color shampoo and After Color balsam. So now that we talked about our Tinta color treatments, let's talk about our After Color program. I want you guys to think of this as part of the color service, that it has to be done at the shampoo bowl to really conclude the color that you just applied to your guest. So after the processing time is up, you bring them back to the shampoo bowl, rinse well, and then apply your After Color shampoo and After Color balsam. You'll notice on the front of the packaging that they both say they have a pH of 4. This is super important after a color service to help bring back down the pH of the hair to a close to normal range. You'll also note that it has our Solomir in it, which is our UVA and UVB protectant, and then it also has our sea silk proteins in it. So it's going to help repair and strengthen the hair. These are both gluten-free and vegan. Your After Color shampoo is going to remove any residual pigment from the hair and scalp, close back down the cuticle of the hair, and again, reduce that pH. Your After Color balsam also helps bring down the pH of the hair, helps with combability, and adds moisture. So After Color shampoo, After Color balsam, designed to be used after every color service and lightening service, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit.